Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Brisquette. I'm the Director of Athletics and Assistant Principal for Old Town High School. I'd like to personally welcome everyone to a fall sports informational virtual presentation. A little different this year than what it's been in previous years of obviously our in-person fall athletic informational day. With that being said, everything's a little bit different this year. And thus we'll have a few more guidelines and differences in previous operational years. I hope that all this information answers some questions that you might be having, and I hope that it finds you in good health and good spirits. With that in mind, we're going to move through some of the information pertaining to the operation of athletics this fall season. So, the biggest and probably most important thing is going to be ways to communicate during this athletic season. Communication is obviously key in all operations, but is more important this year as we work through a COVID-19 influence season. All communication should obviously start with the coaches, then work its way to the AD, and then the ladder, up the ladder from this point on. All of my coaches have been informed to obviously keep me informed with anything that has happened before it happens. So I hope that the parents respect that process, students respect that process, and go through that process of communication. If steps are jumped or as I say, the ladder is climbed before the appropriate means, sometimes that puts a delay in finding results because that means that the people have to backtrack to gain information. So again, please respect the process of communication. Means to get a hold of me if you need to. My email is presented here on the slide. It's also available on our Old Town website, which I'll be showing you shortly here. You can also call the school. My office extension is 2305. The number to call is 827-3910, and then you can input 2305. If you need some general information and or direction, definitely call the main office and talk to Carrie Madden, who is my trustful administrative assistant. She does have a plethora of information. Again, 827-3910. Her extension is 2306. I did put on here that using any social media for communication is not a guaranteed means of communicating. That's not something that's checked all the time. We do require or hope that people do email us or call us directly. Our social media platforms are managed by multiple people, and sometimes that information does get sidetracked, lost, or put away. So I do hope that we all reach out in an efficient means of communicating, as we work through this sports season. And I will review the different means of communicating and where that information is here shortly. Things to know, there is required paperwork for our athletes to participate. Obviously, this paperwork to participate is located here at the school, or it's located online in virtual forms. This paperwork can be given to the coach, or it can be dropped off to Ms. Madden in the main office. All student athletes will be required to fill out Form A. This can be picked up at the school. It's a green form. All the forms do have their indications in the upper right-hand corners. Form B is the athletic physical form. This is obviously used by any first-time athlete for Old Town High School. It's a white form here at the school. And then Form C is a health update form. This is used by anyone who has a change in health since their physical has been submitted to the school. We will also use this form this year for any person who cannot get a physical, and I'll explain that later. Again, this is yellow if it's picked up from the school. The in-school physical forms are different colors. So obviously, if you do print these off at home, the average person just has white paper at home. So that's why we do a color indication here at school versus, at home printing. So that is what the difference is there. Emergency cards, coaches will issue these, but if you need to get ahead or want to get ahead, they're also located on the Old Town High School website. And then there is a Northern Lights medical release, a release to treat. This gives permission for our athletic trainer, Scott Audette, to assess our student athletes, treat our student athletes, come up with everything from diet plans, the physical training plans, to rehab plans, and so on. Again, this is found at the school or it's on our Old Town website. More things to know. Physicals. Physicals are required for student athletes. They're required to have one physical done in 4 years of participating. That physical needs to be dated inside the academic year that they are attending high school, or they choose to start a sport. So for an example, any incoming freshmen need to have a physical that is post-dated from July 1, 2020. July 1 starts our new fiscal year. The MPA this year has waived the requirement for a physical due to the backups in obviously our medical facilities. So with that in mind, if a student athlete who is new to Old Town Athletics cannot get a physical scheduled, we will waive that for this sports season, but will require you to fill out the Form C, our health form, so that we do have health information on file. Communication. We do have multiple avenues for communication here at Old Town High School. This would be communication that is from the school to our community, to our public. So this includes communications from social media outlets, our websites, the MPA. The MPA jumped to a new platform, a new web advisor called Our Schools Today. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then our RSU 34 app. We do have an app. It is downloadable from Android and or Apple. And it does allow to push notifications to anything that is specific to school and or athletics. Information, this would be informational forms, general information for operation, information pertaining to school, can be found obviously on a couple of different sources. So information about Old Town High School or Old Town Athletics available on our website, our RSU 34 app, the MPA website, which would be our Schools Today website. Again, I'll show you that in a second. Something that's also important for this year is eligibility. The MPA has waived eligibility for the fall season, or Old Town is accepting the waived eligibility for the fall season. This was done because of the disruption in education that occurred in the spring, and we will look to support this. As the school year moves on, obviously our student athletes will be subject to our Old Town High School co-curricular eligibility policy. Also new this year, because we did change our schedule and our course offerings, seniors and juniors will need to take a minimum of 2 courses per quarter to maintain eligibility. Sophomores and freshmen must take a minimum of 3 courses per quarter to maintain eligibility. And the reason why it's broken down per quarter is because we are doing semesters. So 1 quarter could equal a half credit which is needed, or it's a half credit of a course or a full course. So that means that was broken down into quarters this year. Thus, a course could feasibly end at the end of a quarter. So that is the rationale behind the minimums per quarter. At this time, I'm going to break from my screen here, and I am going to share a new screen that has all of our media and informational outlets. So hopefully you can see this, but this is our Old Town High School page, our actual web page. We switched over to this format a couple of years ago. Down here is our news feed, events, and live feed. News feed is more of a stagnant information, updated periodically with new information, generally shared out on multiple platforms. Our events is essentially a scrolling events of calendar. This obviously will be updated once we get more information pertaining to athletic schedules and or school-based activities. Our live feed is more of a scrolling live event. So these are information that happens on a daily to hourly basis and will be updated as such. Up top here is our access bars to our information. If you click underneath your menu, here it gives you a plethora of information. There is a subtitle or a subsection for Old Town Athletics. And as you can see, there is a bunch of drop downs. Important is our athletic staff. This has contact information for all of our coaches, fall, winter, and spring coaches. So if you need to get in touch with anybody, here's where you would get that information from. Relating to documents that are needed, you can find those in two spots. You can either go down to Old Town Athletics and you can scroll down to athletic forms, policies, and information, or you can just generally click on documents. And that will provide you with either school-based information, schedules when we get them, and Old Town athletic information. And here's all of your documents that are needed. If you go underneath here, here are all your forms that are needed for your sports season. Moving right along, we do have a Facebook page. You will notice that there is a common access or tag point for all of our social media. So at Old Town Coyotes is a way for people to simply find our page and make sure that it is the appropriate page for that matter. And again, information will be updated and shared out on these platforms for people to view. We also have a Twitter page, again, sharing the same call sign and or at derivative. So here is at Old Town Coyotes, again, sharing the same information across multiple platforms. We also do have an Old Town High School Instagram page, as you can see, again, sharing the same information across different platforms. We also do have an apparel Sideline Store. This is through BSN, a partnership with BSN. This is a chance for you to show your Coyote pride and reach out and get gender-specific, apparel. You can design it, looking at different elements of what your relationship is to Old Town High School, whether you're a family member of an athlete, different sports, alumni. And it's a neat way for you to get some customized gear shipped directly to your house. I'm going to reference this a couple more times, and we might as well jump to it while it's right here. This is going to be the actual symptom checker for Northern Lights. Your athletes will be required to fill this out on a daily basis and present this to their coaches. It's a simple website. This website can be directly linked to a direct link app on a phone. Apple or Android phones can both do it. It creates almost like an app form, but it's a direct link to a web browser. Athletes will fill these out as it pertains to them. And as long as they qualify, they will actually be presented with a time-stamped and date-stamped green to go participating. And they can walk up, show that to their coach, and on they go. And I'll talk more about this in a bit. So here we'll jump back to our PowerPoint presentation. All right, so some other things that are different for this athletic season. We obviously have a blend of in-person and or hybrid learners and remote learners. Obviously, full attendance is always a factor, whether it's this year or previous years. Student athletes must maintain full attendance to be considered eligible to participate. This is for in-person and virtual learning days. Remote learners have the same expectations for attendance and involvement. If you're not present in all of your academic classes for the day, then you're not eligible to participate in athletics. Attendance is going to be checked at the end of each academic day, and it will be checked for in-person and remote learners. And good to note that if your learning day is on Friday and attendance is not met, that means the student athlete is not eligible to participate until that attendance can be met, which means Monday. So if there are athletic events, competitions, or practices over the weekend, that student athlete would not be eligible to participate in those. So again, please help out with attendance. Student athletes, you know the expectations. Parents, guardians, please enforce it. I'll be sharing this out, but I'm very happy to see that we actually have a schedule for our different programs to meet. You can see this. Again, I'll be sharing this out later, but boys soccer, girls soccer, cross country, field hockey, fall cheer, football, and golf will all be starting at 3:30 on Monday, September 14th. The locations are there and present. So if you're interested in playing or participating, have your forms filled out and show up to those locations at that time. A little different this year as well, obviously to minimize the impact on space in classrooms, the lack of access to lockers that we have, and the lack of access to locker rooms. Student athletes can store equipment in the coach's room, which is located in the gym, in McKenzie Gymnasium. It's to the left-hand side, double doors that will be open. I ask that the student athletes put their athletic gear on the correctly labeled table so that we do not have intermixing of athletic gear in that area. Those doors will be accessible at the beginning of the academic day or per request if a student comes in late due to release or any other reason. Talking about transportation this year is going to be also a little different. As always, student athletes cannot transport themselves to athletic events. Exceptions to this rule can only be approved or communicated by administration at Old Town High School. Any alternative transportation is approved with a single note for parents or guardians. This is a change from previous where we had a request every single time. We will be allowing a single note to count for the athletic or academic school year. This should be communicated as well to the coaching staff. And generally how this works is when we receive a request and it's approved, I go ahead and also communicate that to the coaching staff as well. But if there are some days in which this is not applicable, I please ask that you communicate that to the coaches. Any student who is planning on riding to and from an athletic event that is not with a parent or guardian, their parent or guardian, we need a note to accompany that. Again, this is all liability. This is all for protection of your own student athlete. So if you wish them to ride home with a friend and or someone who is trusted that is an adult, so it cannot be their significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend. We need documentation to show. All this documentation should be made before the departure of an athletic event. So please make sure we have this in line. Refusal, obviously, to follow this direction will result in the student athlete from being ineligible for the next sport contest. So again, we need to make sure that we are participating in this. And then a request from the athletic department, we're obviously going to need parental help with student transportation to athletic events. If you're willing to do so, like I said, please submit a transportation request outlined above. Obviously, with the bus restrictions that we have, we are looking at making sure that we can provide some kind of alternative transportation. Again, until the restriction is lifted on the number of students that we can have on a bus. But until then, like I said, if you're willing to do so, we are looking at regional schedules, which means that the transportation and distance is obviously not going to be as impactful as it has been in past fall sports seasons. New for this year, there are COVID-19 protocols. Masks are a part of our life. Like it or hate it, it is what it is. So we are requiring that on person and wearing while on Old Town High School RSU properties. Students may not be grouped together and not wearing masks. This is something we need to stand tall on this year in order to have an athletic season. So if you're going to and from your car, if you're heading up to practice, if you're involved in practice, face masks needs to be readily available and worn at times. Masks are to be worn whenever the student athlete has come together for information sharing, direction, or when social distancing cannot be maintained. I have tasked our coaches with making sure that their practice plans fall within inside the guidelines of the state and for operational purposes. So we are looking to make sure that we maintain or implement social distancing, but in cases where it cannot be maintained, you need to bring the team together for some direction. Masks need to be worn. Masks are not required for athletic competition, so we're not requiring our athletes to wear a mask on the field. Masks, although, are required for anyone on the sidelines. So people or subs that are not participating, whenever there's a break in practice or play, whether you're an athletic director, an assistant athletic director, or game personnel, volunteer, athletic trainer, anybody who's on the sidelines is going to be required to have a face mask. Screening, I talked about this already, but the screening is the responsibility of the athlete and the athlete's family. I share with you the sports check that we do have for Northern Lights virtual questionnaire. If for some reason that's not obtainable, our head coaches will have those questions and they can interview the individual students to make sure that they have answered no to all those questions in a confidential format. Sports equipment, you're going to hear me, this is going to get a little redundant, but sports equipment this year, there's a key element and aspect on sanitation of that sports equipment and individuality of that sports equipment. So student athletes will be asked to bring personal equipment for use. This equipment or any personal sports equipment, clothes, gear, practice gear, uniforms, athletic balls, or other, etc. equipment, golf clubs, tees, things of that nature, anything that's specific to a sport is a responsibility for the individual to sanitize after every use. Use can be considered a practice, a game, but after that, it's up to the responsibility of the individual to stop or to make sure they sanitize. Some sports are offering the ability to bring your own chair for sideline use. Field hockey, for example, they're going in as a team building exercise to be able to, they're going to buy their own camp chairs for sideline use, but student athletes will be required to space equipment on the sidelines during play. Our athletics guidelines have allowed for us to extend the sideline area, the player area, to afford us to have the ability to have correct spacing of our student athletes. It is required for all student athletes to bring with them their own water to consume. We will not supply water this year. It's an individual responsibility. It is a required piece of equipment for sports this year. All student athletes will be required to bring a water bottle or multiple water bottles for them to consume. They are not to share these. We will not have mass watering stations. This will be the responsibility of the athlete this year. So again, parent, guardian, and player responsibilities. Student athletes will be responsible for reporting their health and communicating needs to the coaches. We have the COVID sports check from Northern Lights. Student athletes are responsible for individual sport equipment. Student athletes who cannot practice these expectations of sanitation and health reporting can and will be placed on appropriate probation upon levels of hygiene or sanitation that is established. Student athletes will be responsible for maintaining safe practices outside the athletic day as well. We encourage this. We hope everyone's following this. But again, we need to make sure that we're not bringing any kind of outside exposure into our controlled groups. So with the support of our community and our athletic community and our parents and our athletes, I hope that we can work towards including this in our daily practices. Parents and guardians, obviously you're responsible for communicating with the athletic department regarding any concerns or needs that are centered on your student athlete. And also responsible for maintaining screening of the individual athlete's health and well-being. Again, we just ask that communication is there and we know when something is not right. Obviously, these are kind of some other operational considerations and are things that are outlined in the phase 2 community sports return to play. But obviously, if you feel sick, please stay home. Do not go to work. Do not go to school. Contact and follow the advice of any medical providers that you get. Other considerations: a wide availability of hand sanitizer will be present at practices and contests. Each coach has been given a COVID-19 equipment, we're calling it, so that includes things like hand sanitizers, disinfectants, gloves, masks, everything to abide by the state guidelines. We will have sanitation of equipment during play. Most of our sports have breaks to accommodate that. There obviously is no pregame or postgame handshakes, high fives, fist bumps. Sideline volunteers. Again, so if you're a ball runner for soccer, scorekeeper, clock operator, face coverings are going to be required. Again, just as an example, some officials are even gone as far as making or having artificial noisemakers in place of whistles to show you the accommodations that are even happening at the official level. Equipment, again, as previously stated, is going to be the functional responsibility of the athlete. We need to make sure that these are sanitized, that your practice gear and your game gear is all washed, maintained, sanitized as well. And again, if people can't follow this or abide by this, then we're going to have to step in and control that situation. Water, hydration containers, again, it's the responsibility of the athlete. Athletic gear, safety equipment per sport, balls, gloves, mouth guards, towels, sports shoes, all of those have to be maintained and sanitized by the individual. Believe it or not, we are still working on some very important things. We've gotten guidelines late on a multiple different sport level, which again has pushed back some very needed and important information, such as schedules. We are currently working on schedules for the year. The PVC has not set schedules yet. Again, as we look at regional pods and who is offering what is dictating a lot of this. Fans for Old Town High School are working towards a decision regarding this. As you know, the governor has a 100-person count. When you take in consideration of all the athletes, game personnel, officials, game workers, volunteers, athletic directors, athletic trainers, this number jumps and creeps closer and closer to the 100 mark. With that, we don't know if we'll be able to offer the opportunity for fans. To meet that demand, we will be offering live streaming capabilities. So all events at Old Town High School, sports events, will be live streamed. They will be going through our YouTube channel and or our Facebook channel for every event. That will be communicated out prior to the start of the event. We are looking at a plan for senior games. These will be scheduled within the first scheduled home games. And at those senior games, we will allow for senior parents to be permitted to watch. Just as a kind of final thank you for those families who are committed to our athletic programs. A final decision regarding football and what football will look like for Old Town High School. We are working on that right now. We are giving guidelines late on Friday as to what the structure of that will look like. So we're still working through that. And then we entered into another very interesting and exciting connection with NFHS, which is a sports streaming network. We've been offered an accepted Pixelot video system, which will follow the action of the game and be available through the NFHS network. It's another avenue for live streaming. Once that is come and set up, more information will be given out from there. So at this time, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank everyone involved with making sure that sports happen for Old Town High School. It's been a momentous and very energy draining time. We've spent countless hours on Zoom calls, regional, statewide, national meetings, gaining information, trying to make the best educated decision for our kids, our community safety. So with that in mind, I'd like to thank our other administrators. I'd like to thank my fellow ADs for all their hard work, my coaches for the countless emails and ups and downs. Obviously, our student athletes and everything that they've gone through, and I'm happy to be able to offer them with something. Our community, all the community support that we have. And again, we look forward to having a great fall season. Hope we make it through the whole season. And we see the successes that the Old Town Coyotes are known for. In front of you is a list of links. I will make these links available underneath the YouTube comment section and also on our website. So again, thank you. I appreciate you sitting through the 33 plus minutes of me talking. I hope this information found you in good spirits and in good health. And I look forward to having a great athletic season. Thank you, and we'll see you on the field.